we can make things quite complicated for ourselves, but ultimately, we're the Hare Krishna movement, so we have to be chanting Hare Krishna, and that's actually the powerhouse, that's the source of our strength. The Mahamantra is Krishna, not different from himself, and so that is what is going to be able to purify our consciousness, so that we're not displaying all of these qualities, and that if we look at all of the offenses to the holy name, ultimately the way in which we can I don't want to say counteract, but the way in which we can deal with our offensive mentalities, the best thing for us to do when we're committing offenses to the holy name is to actually continue chanting. Whoops. Oh, thank you. So it may seem quite a big task to undertake, to come to this platform of being able to actually not be attached to our family life, to not be greedy for material things, to not just be a part of this movement as a social thing, to just to go along with the movement, daily movements, but we can rest assured a little bit that as long as our sincerity in chanting the holy name is there, actually that is what will ultimately lead to this capacity to understand the philosophy of Krishna consciousness. Is there any... I like to sort of have reflections and share a bit. Is there anything that somebody would like to share or reflect on some of these topics?
Something came up for me asking the question about, it seems like a contradiction almost. We have to look after our family and their devotees, and we have to serve them. At the same time, we don't want to be attached to them. So, in the chapter 5, text 12 of the Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada says the difference between a devotee and a non-devotee is that a devotee is attached to serving Krishna and pleasing Krishna, whereas a non-devotee is attached to the fruits of his labour. So the same principle applies in Grihastha life, is that the devotee is looking after his family nicely, but his motivation is different, and he's attached to that service, because his motivation is to please Krishna. Whereas the non-devotee, he's also serving his family nicely, but he's attached to the fruits of
the results. Yeah, that's a brilliant point. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, definitely that makes a lot of sense. Particularly, it's about the consciousness, right? It's about the intent in which we're doing things. I mean, that's the secret of this Krishna consciousness, isn't it? It's not necessarily the external displays, but actually it's why we're doing things, how our intent is really why are we doing these things? So if we're just doing it for our own pleasure because our wife and our children make us so happy, and so we're serving them just for our own personal pleasure, then that's just material, isn't it? But the true vision is that we're seeing them as devotees, we're seeing that connection with Krishna, and we're relishing that service to them, and then we're attached to that service. So then we want to just keep doing more and more service, and so then it increases, and that's isn't it? Krishna consciousness, Krishna, everything in relation with Krishna is always ever increasing and always fresh. Thank you for sharing that.
I think there's a risk there. People misunderstand the principle of detachment in family life. It can be quite damaging. Because rather than loving and serving my family, I'm trying to externally, I'm not going to be attached to you.
Yeah.
That's an unhealthy understanding of detachment.
Absolutely. It's, in one sense, it's a false renunciation, isn't it? It's not really. It's trying to apply this kind of like coldness and, oh no, I'm a devotee and I'm not attached to anything material, not just Krishna. But yeah, it's quite a subtle thing, isn't it? Yeah, absolutely.
I was also so appreciating how you were describing the subtlety of these anartas. That's described here is that we have these anartas, many of us, I speak for myself, and the process of anatta nivritti is that we recognize these anartas. It's not that we say, well, I've got these anartas, therefore I give up my Krishna consciousness. I'll just stay away from all the devotees.
Yeah.
But we try to recognize them and try to work with them and progress.
Yeah.
So that we can eventually understand Krishna consciousness, really understand it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think you were also hinting at this concept of Krishna consciousness. We can understand something, even with these anartas, we can come along because of our sincerity. We can understand. But there's a whole depth of Krishna consciousness which we can't understand yet until.
Yeah, absolutely. We can't even, in some cases, we can't even perceive how much we don't understand and how far away we are from understanding. It's a completely different realm of consciousness. Yeah. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, I appreciate that point.
Yes, sorry, Priya?
I was just going to share that my attachment to my family is because the benefits of devotional service also go to them for a long way back, I understand, and even and forward. So they hopefully are giving me their blessings also to stay in Krishna consciousness for them. So
Yeah.
that's my attachment.
Yeah, that's lovely. It's like that attachment is essentially, it's creating a sort of a cycle of benevolence, or isn't it? It's about
Even the generations who I've never met, maybe I can't really imagine that they would be like Krishna conscious. So I just stay in devotional service consciously for them, because sometimes we tend to do things for others, less for ourselves,
yes.
which is really good for us, but we do it for others before we will do it for ourselves. In the case of families, right?
Yeah. That's love, isn't it? Love is doing things for others and not thinking about our own sort of enjoyment, isn't it? Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that.
What came up for me was what you mentioned about being real and work from your own level in Krishna consciousness. So, like, like we are a society of aspiring devotees, and we have a cultural aspect and we have a religious aspect of our society. And sometimes, like you said about being real, whatever our level is, a lot of people come from different backgrounds in our society because they're attracted to either the cultural aspect or actually the religious aspect, whichever aspect. But eventually it's kind of, once they come in the mix, eventually they get purified. So, wherever our level is, like I will speak for myself, I had a background. I did not grow up in ISKCON. I didn't know anything. I just came from a cultural background of being Hindu. Family life is very prominent in Hindu culture. Duty, the Hindu culture's duty is a very prominent thing. So I was naturally drawn towards family life. Got married and situated in family life, and then practicing Krishna consciousness within that. now thinking if I would say no, the family life is that. I will negate it and not recognizing my level, and will try to bypass it. Probably I will not be happy.
Yes.
And not be comfortable. So I really appreciated the point that you brought about being real and understanding your own level, and then according to that try to apply yourself in Krishna consciousness and make gradual progress from there.
Yeah.
That was helpful.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that back. It reminds me of, was it in the 4th chapter that where Krishna is saying that basically what's the point in falsely giving things up? Like if you're, which is it, text 30 or something? Where, let me quickly find it. Just give me a moment. Well, the verse is escaping me right now. But essentially, I think this idea that there's no use in pretending to do anything, because ultimately, I mean, Krishna sees through it all, right? And hopefully we have guides and people that will also see through it and tell us what we're doing wrong, or show us our sort of this veneer that we're this facade that we're putting in front of us to show to everybody else, what kind of I'm a devotee, and that it's a form of being hypocritical, isn't it? To, in one sense, try and practice at a level which we really are not at or qualified to be yet. And ultimately that doesn't satisfy us, and we're not really getting much benefit from it, because it's just all kind of false, right? Yeah. So in that sense, I think it's super important to just be honest about where we are, and if we do have some attachment to our family, then in an unhealthy way, recognize it and just work on it. And then it's okay, maybe we won't be able to fully understand all of the philosophy of Krishna consciousness, but I mean, we've all got to start somewhere. But yeah, thank you for sharing that.
I was also thinking, as a movement, this concept of our ashram is based on compassion. And so as a movement, we'll have devotees who are on the higher platform and are free from as artists. But we'll also have many devotees who are struggling with these artists. But it doesn't mean that we look down on them, that they're any less human and important. We don't create this false kind of situation where people who are on that platform feel themselves unable to participate and continue. So there's an acceptance.
Yeah, that's true.
Acceptance of who we are as human beings. That, you're on that platform and we're working together to support each other to get to that higher consciousness.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's really important. Otherwise, it's quite easy to alienate people by creating this kind of us and them. Oh, you're just at this stage, and we're like this, and so it doesn't make it very attractive for people to want to continue in their practice if they're feeling judged and are not really receiving that compassion from their seniors. And that's when I think it definitely becomes easier to just put a facade on than to be real, because you're not really getting the real proper care and love from the seniors. Yeah, I think that's a really important point. Yeah. definitely. Hopefully we can all try and be compassionate to our subordinates or to new people, newcomers, people that we're talking to. Yeah, that makes it quite, because I've seen that myself. Sometimes a new bhakta will come along and they're very enthusiastic and keen to start doing some service, and they're getting some association devotees. They're really appreciating the prasadam and they love the temple or whatever center it may be. And then once they start talking to somebody about all their anarthas and how terrible things are, and they start to see, oh my God, this person is talking about me. They're, what? Oh no, I'm all of this thing, and they're saying that I'm terrible, and like this is not Krishna conscious, and I can't understand Krishna consciousness. And sometimes it's too much for them, and then they just run off because they can't handle it. But if we have the proper, kind, compassionate, soft approach, then we can reassure them that, oh no, I was there too, and like, no, there's some time, there's chance, there's an opportunity to improve, and just because you see all of these faults doesn't mean you have to freak out, but just keep going steadily. But unfortunately that doesn't always happen. We can be a little heavy, yes, that's right, da-da-da. So yeah, that's a really nice thing. I'm going to try and meditate on that myself.
It's not just newcomers either, because sometimes somebody comes to Krishna consciousness and after some time they realise, because it takes many lifetimes, some people come to the movement and they're already at a platform where they're ready to take off. Other devotees, we come along and after many years we realise I'm still dealing with so many anarthas. I'm still here. And maybe it's going to take me a longer time to get to that stage of purity. So it's also for those devotees who, after 20 years, 30 years, we're still struggling.
Right. It can be a bit disheartening.
It can be disheartening, but they need encouragement and support that they can continue on the path.
Yeah, that's very true. And we can never really tell where a person is, right? When they come, they might be like this. Yeah. After some time. Yeah, thank you. Is there any more things to share? I think you have to go now, Prabhu, don't you? Hare Krishna. How long is the class?
Usually half an hour.
Okay. Well, in that case, if there's any last questions or comments, anything? Huh? Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Anta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai.